I got run over by a truck, and I broke 6 vertebrae in my spine, and I had to make a decision at that time in my life, because the diagnosis wasn't very good, and neither was the prognosis. And I had to decide if I was going to spend the rest of my life on addictive medications and with surgical rods in my spine, or if I was going to see if the mind could actually heal the body. And so that was my wake-up call in 1986. And so I just I was at the point where I just had to make a decision to see if it was actually the truth. If all of this that I learned was the truth, let's apply it. And so I was lucky enough to have a dramatic change in my own personal health. And then I thought, God, yeah, if it worked on me as it worked on other people. So I started looking into people that had, been treating conventionally or non-conventionally and with a certain diagnosis, and their condition was staying the same, getting worse, and all of a sudden it got better. And I just wanted to look at what the cause was that was producing that effect. And so I interviewed, hundreds and hundreds of people that had gone through the process. And one of the most fundamental elements that they all had in common was there were a lot of things that had to do with their mind. And some people had specific diets and specific regimes. Some people used certain conventional and non-conventional protocols, but the commonality primarily was about how the mind was really influencing the body. And they began to really take a closer look at how they were thinking on a daily basis, how they were acting on a regular basis, and looking at how they feel on a moment-to-moment basis. And how you think and how you act and how you feel is your personality. And your personality has a very direct relationship with your personal reality, which means if you want to change your personal reality, if you want to change something about your life, you got to change. And so the process of change then becomes the fundamental process of going from some person that's familiar and known to you and stepping out and beginning to make different choices and to begin thinking differently and begin to behave differently and speak differently and feel differently. And if you start thinking, acting, and feeling differently, our research shows without a doubt, you're going to have dramatic changes in your biology. And if you do it enough times, you're going to become someone else. And the disease then all of a sudden exists in the old personality and not in the new personality. And you ask the person, where's the cancer? Where's the rheumatoid arthritis? Where's the immune-mediated condition? It's in the old person. I'm not that person any longer. And so when we started seeing these changes taking place in people that had their own personal remissions, I thought, well, is that teachable? And what is the science behind teaching it? Can we teach people how to begin to change their thoughts? And is there neuroscience to support it? And there's tons. And if you begin to behave differently, can you create new pathways that begin to become habituated over time? And if you stop feeling suffering and you stop feeling pain, and you stop feeling guilt, and you start feeling elevated emotions like joy or inspiration or gratitude, not just in a momentary state like positive thinking, but to be able to self-regulate and maintain that, if we could teach that, could we produce the same effects in people? So I think this is a time in history, Mark, where it's not enough to know. It's a time in history to know how. So all that philosophy is all great dinner conversation, but when you're given a diagnosis, now you got to step out of the bleachers and you got to get on the playing field and you got to start making different choices. And the hardest part about change is not making the same choices you did the day before. And the moment you decide to make a different choice, whether you like it or not, you're going to feel uncomfortable. The moment they start thinking about their problems, they're thinking in the past. Now, because every one of those problems has an emotion associated with them, the moment they start feeling unhappy or feeling sad, now their body's in the past, because thoughts are the language of the brain and feelings are the language of the body, and how we think and how we feel creates our state of being. Now, the problem is that the person thinks of the problem, feels the emotion, and that is a thought and feeling. That's an image and an emotion. It's a stimulus and response. And that starts the conditioning process to get the body emotionally conditioned into the past. Now, here's the crazy part about that. The familiar past emotionally is producing dramatic effects on the body, because the body is so objective that it does not know the difference between the real life experience that's creating that emotion and the emotion that person is fabricating by thought or memory alone. The body's believing it's living in the same past experience 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And the problem with that is that the environment signals the gene. That's epigenetics. And the end product of an experience in the environment is an emotion. So the person is keeping the same gene regulated because the body's believing it's living in the same environmental conditions. So getting that person to step outside of that familiar known territory into the unknown, where there is uncertainty, and have them be comfortable there and begin to think about how they are going to think. And
you're telling people to give up their identity of who they are, what defines them, their past, their stories, their beliefs. You're coming after it. You're going for the jugular in our old patterns and our old ways of being that keep us not well and keep us unhappy and sick.
Turns out that's 95% of who we are. So if we don't address those unconscious programs, you can, and you're an integrated physician, you understand this, that you could have the healthiest, ketogenic, vegan, intermittent fasting, enzymes, food combining. And if you're living in fear, if you're living in pain, the cell is not in a state to actually absorb anything. It's in a state of emergency. In an emergency, there's no growth and repair because the body's believing it's in a different environment, and growth and repair is what does it. So then we said, okay, let's see if we can demystify the process. So the concept, the word meditation, literally means to become familiar with. If you look at the symbolism of it and you look it up, it's familiarization. So you sit down and you say, okay, I don't want to be unhappy. I don't want to be angry. I don't want to talk trash about people. I don't want to complain. I want to blame. I don't want to make excuses. I don't want to feel lack. I don't want to have an attitude that's telling me I can. It's too hard. That's the old identity, right? So the moment you start becoming conscious of those unconscious thoughts, the moment you become aware of your automatic habits and behaviors, the moment you can notice that this is actually guilt that you're feeling, or sadness or pain, the moment you can become conscious and familiar with those states of mind and body, if you keep becoming familiar with it, if you keep becoming conscious of it, you won't go unconscious. So sitting in a meditation to know thyself, most people all of a sudden, here comes the barrage of thoughts. Here comes the propensities and habits, and here comes the emotions. The body's saying, you normally complain at this time. What are you doing sitting with your eyes closed? Let's think of a reason why you can complain. And the body starts influencing the mind. We now know that it's a formula, that if you follow a formula, you will actually start pruning circuitry. You'll stop the conditioning process and move the body out of the past, and it starts liberating energy. And that's energy to heal with. That's energy to create a new life. That's energy to digest again. The body's no longer living in survival or living in emergency. And the majority of people's emotions then tend to be derived from the hormones of stress. And so that we started realizing that the arousal of the stress hormones, the rush of the chemistry, is actually tapping the body's resources. And the stronger the emotions we feel towards any problem or person in our life, the more we pay attention to them. And if where you place your attention is where you place your energy, then you're giving your power away to that person or problem. And if a person can learn to sit in the fire and say, it's not my boss, it's not my ex, it's not my job, it's not the pandemic, it's me. That this emotion isn't serving me because this emotion is the exact emotion that's pushing the genetic buttons that's creating disease. Okay, if I can keep practicing lowering the volume to that emotion, I'll keep taking my attention off that person or problem. And in a sense, the body starts moving back where? Into the present moment. It starts getting relaxed in the unknown. So we started teaching people the process, and by a person overcoming their past, not the trauma, just the emotion. They just have to work on breaking that conditioning process, because if you keep doing it over and over again, a habit is when the body becomes the mind. Now the servant, now the body's influencing the mind. So you teach a person then how to break that conditioning process. The body starts moving into the present moment. It's no longer in the same environmental condition. And then all of a sudden, we start to see some pretty dramatic changes in people's health.